Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Keep Moving with the APDA. We're so pleased that you're here with us today. If you have a chance, would you say hello in the chat? We'd love to know who's here. And then also, the chat is another way we'll be taking questions. So if there's any question you have during the broadcast, feel free to pop it in the chat. Oh, it's so nice to see everybody here, and we really appreciate it. I'm Teresa, and I'm with the Center for Neurorehabilitation at Boston University. We are on Twitter. This is our Facebook. This is our email. If there was anyone that wanted to connect with us on social media, we would certainly appreciate it. And as you know, we're part of the APDA Resource and Referral Center here at Boston University. So our topic for today, we are talking about assistive devices for walking and talking about the pros and cons of each. It's the kind of thing that sometimes it might feel like a sensitive topic. Maybe people don't mind talking about it. And so we are curious to hear everyone's experiences using assistive devices, if you have a chance to put it in the chat. So by way of introduction, I think you may know this is our team at Boston University. And over the past several months, our team, our colleagues, Nick and Tim and I have been presenting these latest Let's Keep Moving series about strategies to assist with walking. In March, Nick presented strategies to improve walking, specifically around freezing of gait. And last month, Tim presented strategies using auditory cues such as music or the beat of a metronome to assist with walking. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to any of those episodes, we really encourage you to do that. And you can find those on the APDA YouTube channel. And today, of course, we will be talking about assistive devices as strategies to improve walking. And as always, we present these webinars as general information and not as individual advice. So of course, we're happy to take questions during the broadcast, but please do consult your doctor or your physical therapist for more recommendations specific to yourself. Okay, so what do we mean by assistive device? What is it? I think some people may have an idea. It's any style of device or equipment that's used to aid someone with the challenge of walking. So it's designed to be used by the person who's walking. Of course, there's many different styles, and each one has different benefits. There's also different considerations. For the most part, we'll be talking about canes and walkers. And you can see kind of a variety of different canes and walkers here on the slide. And we'll go through the different categories and maybe list some more specifics that people would want to take into consideration. But in general, what would be the benefit of an assistive device, and why would someone use it to help with their walking? Well, when any of us are on our feet, such as with standing or walking, the area around the feet form what we call the base of support for the body. For anyone to maintain balance with standing or walking, we have to keep the center of our body within the base. And for some people with Parkinson's disease, there is a tendency to have a slightly narrower standing position with their feet, so it creates a narrower base of support. And sometimes there's also a tendency to be a little forward with posture. So that puts the center of the body a little more forward over the base. And those can be challenging conditions to maintain stability. However, when someone's using an assistive device, say, for example, a cane, and in the picture here, you could see this would be representing somebody standing and the tip of the cane, a bottom tip of the cane touching the ground. So what that does is it widens the base of support. And now you could imagine the base becomes the area not only of the feet, but the area where the assistive device, in this case the cane, is also touching the ground. So now that the base is bigger or wider, it becomes a little easier to stay balanced and keep the center of the body over the base. And I think you could probably imagine if we had a picture here of, say, a walker, where the walker itself has a bigger base, that also creates a wider base of support for the person using it if we consider the area of the feet and the area where the device touches the ground. So the benefit of an assistive device for walking is it changes the balance requirements. It makes it easier to balance with walking and can definitely assist with stability. And then the other thing is that an assistive device might be able to help someone provide more postural support, kind of by using the how the height of the device is set, and allow someone to use the arms to help maybe a little bit um, ease the work of holding the trunk in an upright position. So for some people, an assistive device can also have um, postural support to it. Um, so it kind of leads us to the next question, or the next topic is, someone might ask themselves, is an assistive device right for me? And this is where I really am curious for the audience is, have you used an assistive device for walking before? And if you have, I'm curious, what was your experience? Maybe did you try more than one? So I'm curious to hear from anyone that's in the audience today. But to answer this question, it's a big question. Is an assistive device right for a person? It really takes individualized advice from a physical therapist who can see you walk with the device, without the device, and maybe make specific recommendations. But for anyone, an assistive device really depends on the goal of walking. So you might consider, is the goal maybe to have more endurance, be able to walk further? Say, for example, you would be able to walk in the neighborhood if you had the advantage of using a device, versus if you didn't have the device, maybe you wouldn't get that far. For some people, speed is the goal, and I often hear that from my patients reference to, say, keeping up with the family when the family's on a walk, or getting across the parking lot really with enough time to make it to an appointment. So that's there, all these are very specific considerations, but that these are things that kind of go through people's mind and go through a physical therapist consideration when we're recommending devices. For other people, balance considerations and safety is really kind of at the forefront. So, would an assistive device make walking safer? Um, and another consideration that kind of feeds into that is the environment. Perhaps you can see here in the picture, there's someone that's on a very even, flat surface, say almost like a sidewalk. But say that person wanted to cut across the grass just to, take a shortcut, and the grass is more unstable. There could be roots, there could be little dips. So, would an assistive device provide more stability in that type of environment? Uneven surface could be even like a rug that someone has in their house. And then the environment also includes kind of lighting conditions. Say, for example, a low light situation. Could you imagine getting up to use the bathroom at night where the lights aren't on all the way? Maybe having an assistive device in that particular situation would make walking safer, or would make someone just be able to get to what they need to do. So, an assistive device really depends on an individual, and it depends on the goal of their walking. And the other thing I want to mention is that an assistive device may only be for walking in certain circumstances and not something that someone uses all the time. An assistive device is definitely one tool to help someone with their walking. And because someone is using an assistive device doesn't mean that's what they need for walking in all conditions. Um, so, given that there is so much variability, I'd like to show some examples of assistive devices and go over some of the pros and cons. And having said that, a con doesn't necessarily mean um, a device is negative, but it really is just more information to consider. And then as we go through these different devices, I hope we could share with you that we aren't endorsing any particular brand or product per se, but rather we want to give an overall information, or give overall information of what's out there and what's available, and then maybe even share some experiences we've had with some of our patients and what we've seen work or not work. So maybe we'll start off with hiking poles, and maybe some people might think to themselves, that doesn't seem like an assistive device, but it can be something that helps with walking. So perhaps some of the benefits of hiking poles is they are very lightweight, and then with the hiking poles, it can be something that assists in arm swing, even both arms swinging, as you can imagine, swinging your arm to set the pole on the ground. Another perhaps advantage of a hiking pole is it looks like recreational equipment, and it is. Many people use it for hiking, as you can imagine. So it's possible for some people that maybe the look of an assistive device, or the fact that it feels like more of a medical device, create some, turmoil or something that they're considering, the hiking pole might be a nice alternative. Maybe some cons to consider or just things to consider is that the bottom tip of a hiking pole can sometimes be very pointed. Sometimes that works extremely well outside, but perhaps if this is something someone was using like on a sidewalk, for example, that may not work with the surface that someone is planning to walk with. So it's just something to keep in mind. And then also to recognize that hiking poles are generally not covered by insurance. If the cost of the pole was something that someone really had to take into consideration, just noting that. Um, so again, we're going through different types of devices, and we can always come back and address any particular questions someone might have, but maybe we'll go on to the next category of device. I think people are very familiar with a cane. And some pros to consider is there's many different styles of cane, different handles, different lengths, different adjustability, even different bases of support within a cane. Canes are very generally inexpensive, and then they're very lightweight, easy to transport, easy to have one in the car if that's what works for someone. But on that note, canes are generally something that strike the ground or the surface with a single point. So that may not be enough stability if someone's experiencing more instability with their walking or needs more balance support. So again, many things to consider, but a cane is certainly one style of assistive device. Another style that I think people are very familiar with is the walker. And I'll just go through maybe a couple of different considerations with walker. In this particular case, this style walker is a walker that does not have any wheels. So you can see the 4 points that touch the ground are posts almost, not wheels. You may have experienced or have seen people that put small devices, say like a tennis ball or a skid, on the surface of the posts of the walker to try to decrease the friction. But in general, this style of walker doesn't have wheels. So although it is much more supportive, you can see even this walker has a wider base of support. It's also very lightweight. It's easy to fold. These are generally covered by insurance. But this style walker, it could be kind of slid along the floor, but again, this style doesn't have wheels. Often what people end up doing is picking it up and putting it down. So it's very stable, but because that's how this style is often used, it could make the whole process of walking more complex. And then it could also be a little more of a challenge with turning, where turning kind of gets broken down into kind of very discrete steps with this style walker. Again, this might be what someone does need to provide stability, but all things to take into consideration with this particular no-wheeled walker. That does lead us to the next style walker, and this is the wheeled walker. And I think people would probably be very familiar with this. You can see here that in these two styles, the front two posts are wheels, and the back two support surfaces are posts. In this one picture, you can see the tennis balls are there just to decrease the friction. So this style of walker is able to roll continuously with someone as they're walking. Again, it's a lighter weight style, and it is covered by insurance. They're foldable. Just other things to mention that might be considerations. This style of walker does not have a braking mechanism. So this stops when the person stops. On this style, you can see there's not a seat available. And this style, although it does roll, might still present a little challenge with turning depending on the person's style of walking. So another style of walker is the four-wheeled walker. And what you can see here is that in this style of walker, all four touch points on the ground are wheels. So that does make it much more mobile, more easy to roll. It can move along quickly with someone as they're walking along. You can see in this style, in these two examples, there's a seat available. And then the other thing is this particular style of walker, someone can set the brake. So they can put the brakes on to stop the walker from moving, which is quite important if someone's going to turn around and use the seat here. In these two styles differ slightly, where the one on the right-hand side is more of an upright style walker. So the way someone's hand is positioned is a little bit different, and that style could help someone stay a little more upright as they're walking. Some, I don't say disadvantages, but maybe just things to consider with this style walker is that it is a little heavier to lift. They're foldable, but a little heavier. and then to fold it to get into the car. It depends on if someone is able to fold it, able to lift it. They are a little more expensive. And then insurance coverage is going to vary depending on the plan and depending on what is going on with someone. So these four-wheel style walkers, the way the previous slide was designed, they move when the person moves and brake when the person brakes. The next style walker I do want to mention is a particular brand. It's called the USTEP Walker. And this was designed to provide specific support and stabilization for people with Parkinson's disease. This style walker uses almost a reverse style braking. So what I mean by that is someone is going to be able to move this walker forward if they're pulling up on the braking mechanism. So they can move forward that way. And then when the person releases the handles, the walker comes to a stop. So it's a very stable style walker. It can stop very quickly, obviously, and it may be more appropriate for people that need more support with their walking due to their balance. And sometimes we've seen this be more utilized for people who are doing a lot of their walking in the house. Some other considerations here: it is heavier to lift. It is foldable, but it is heavier to lift. This style walker is also a little bit more expensive, and insurance coverage varies, although Medicare does provide some reimbursement for this style walker. So all things to keep in mind to consider. Another style of assistive device are devices that provide visual projection. And what I mean by that is usually a laser light alongside with the device that it works with. So one of the pictures here is showing a laser cane, and the laser is kind of embedded in that cane. I don't know if it's obvious here. The cane projects a light. So the person that's using the cane has right away a visual cue to help with their walking. This can be very helpful if it's someone that's experiencing, say, freezing of gait or has a difficult time getting started with gait. When that line of light is on the floor, sometimes people use the cueing strategy to step on the light. And right away, sometimes that can help people get started. This other device that you can see on the right-hand side is made by a company called NextStride, and it provides a similar sort of projection. This can attach to a assistive device that someone's already using. So again, these are just different options, different styles that people may or may not be aware of to help with walking. This provides that more specialized visual projection. So I know we've gone through a lot of different styles. This kind of also leads to that bigger question again of how does someone choose an assistive device? And I would have to answer that by saying, please consult a physical therapist. You really need someone that can evaluate you and kind of incorporate what goals you have for walking, and then really think: is it that you want to walk farther? Is it that you want to walk in different environments? Is it more that safety or balance is as a top priority? Is it that you would be working on trying to be more upright with your walking? So an assistive device might help the quality of walking by helping someone be a little more upright. So again, it's a very individualized sort of answer to this question. But even though it is an individualized answer, we do want to try to help as many people or offer as many suggestions as we can during this broadcast. So as you know, we are able to provide resources via our APDA exercise helpline. So of course, we're here at Boston University, but through the support of APDA, we're really here for everyone. This is our toll-free number. This is our email address. And so if you were to have any questions, I know we'll get to questions in a minute, but any general questions on this topic, or if you were wondering how could you be connected with a physical therapist in your particular area, those are areas that we would really love to help with as much as we could. So having said all that, we'd love to bring on our colleague Tim Nordahl to help manage questions from today, questions in general, and just to see kind of how we could help address this topic even more.
Yeah, hi Teresa. Thank you so much. That was such a great rundown of all the different kind of categories of options that are out there. It was really interesting to watch the chat because you were all able to kind of let us know what you found most helpful. It looks like the overwhelming majority of users were using the trekking poles or hiking poles. So I found that
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah.
Teresa, I know in your talk you had mentioned keeping an eye on the tips for that. So I'm wondering, like, I've seen some that have different tips you can put on, like there's a rubber tip and
Yes.
the like kind of overground tip. So I wonder if everybody is able to kind of log in and tell us what you're finding you're using more often than not.
Tim, thank you for
Uh,
bringing that up. That's such a great point. That, of course, it really depends on, with the hiking poles, where would someone be using them? And the ones that do have the more pointed tip are excellent if someone's on a trail or it's uneven or a grass surface. And I agree with you. I have seen the interchangeable tips that are more flat based. So what contacts the ground would be flatter, and that's beneficial if, say, someone is walking in a paved environment, or say you have a nice, paved walk by the beach, and that's where you want to use your poles. So you're right. That can the style of the bottom tip can be adjusted for what people feel like they will use the hiking poles in.
yeah, and that kind of brings me to the next question I saw, which was, what would you say is the best device for walking over uneven surfaces, like they mentioned grass specifically, or going over a yard or something like that?
Now, that's an excellent question. I really appreciate that. Um, of course, it is going to depend on the person.
Hmm.
We do find that the devices that have maybe more of a single point attachment, say the trekking poles, or perhaps a certain style of cane, might give some more stability. For some style walkers, it's hard for the wheels to handle a very uneven style. So walkers that have a bigger wheel to them do better in more uneven surfaces. So it's an excellent point to explore. If that were, say, someone really wants to be able to be out in the backyard with the grandkids, and that's the primary environment they want their device, really have to make sure that the device is going to handle that terrain. So bigger style of the walker wheels, and then maybe the tips of the single point device that can tolerate sort of that uneven surface.
Yeah, yeah. And then another question that we gotten in was just how do I know how tall should I make my cane, or how should
uh,
I adjust the height of the device itself?
I know that's a question you and I have all the time. It As a very, very generalized answer, if someone is standing with their arms relaxed at their side, where the break and the bend in the wrist is, generally speaking, is sort of the height someone would want the handle. Now, I do say that with a very large variability here, because for some people that feels too low, and then for other people it may feel like that would feel too high. What we do want is kind of a soft bend in the elbow, and we don't want the height of the device to be so high that someone feels their shoulders are kind of hiked up around their ears, or creating any other discomfort in their shoulders or their back. So that's an extremely generalized answer. The one nice thing with most of these devices that we've mentioned is that they are adjustable. And I know something you and I do with patients we see in the clinic a lot is try different heights and try to see, is the advantage if say the cane is a little bit higher, helping someone stay a little bit taller. Is that a better scenario than if we dropped it one notch and that they maybe had a more advantageous, say, wrist position? All things that we want to balance. And again, it comes back to a little bit of what's the goal of the walking, and then how does someone feel using the device.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and one of our participants was wondering, how do I know what brand of walker I should use?
Yeah, that's another one too. And we get very common questions, so I appreciate that person asked that. It's hard to say, and of course we're not advertising one brand over another. Some style, say walkers, as I mentioned before, have say a wheel that's bigger. Some brands of walkers have excuse me, I think the allergies got me.
Yeah.
So sorry. Some style walkers, say, have differences in terms of how the handles are designed. Sometimes there's differences in terms of if there's wires on the outside of a walker.
Spring has sprung in Boston,
So, so
eh?
sorry. Oh, excuse me. Oh, that's such a tickle. So uh, I will say different brands have different sort of advantages. Sometimes different brands come along with different price points.
Hmm.
So it can be tricky to make a certain recommendation. Now, there are some devices for which certain brands are the only one in that category. So that's also something to consider. But it is hard to give a general recommendation. I would say this, and Tim, I don't know what you would say. In physical therapy clinics, often there's a little bit of a chance that there would be say a stockpile or a equipment closet. So someone might have a chance to try something with their physical therapist before they go out and buy something. And that would be one of my top recommendations. Or say, for example, someone in the family could lend someone a cane, maybe bring that to physical therapy and check it with your individual physical therapist before you buy something else.
Yeah, I love that point because it kind of comes back down to just the individual touch to this, and kind of having somebody meet you in person and getting a chance to look at you and see how you're walking with that. And I love, even if the physical therapist can't issue it to you, um, I oftentimes try to find one of those larger like medical supply stores in
Yep,
someone's area, because I mean, everybody tries to shop online or in a catalog nowadays, and you just cannot beat, being able to go there and get your hands on this thing and see how much, support you get from it, and if it's really helping you a lot.
that's right. That's such an excellent point. Thanks, Tim.
And I think
Yeah.
we've probably only got time for one or two more. So if you have any more questions, feel free to kind of log in. And even if there's anything we can't get to today, please keep the APDA rehab resource helpline in mind. We would love to get a call from you or an email, and we'll help kind of get any questions we don't get to today. Um, but one other thing, Teresa, I was thinking we could talk to is just, kind of a common question we get. Maybe there's one or two times you mentioned one or two activities, or sort of like times of day where someone might benefit from using an assistive device. Maybe they don't need it all the time, but that concern we hear about a lot, where people know they might benefit from using an assistive device, but the concern of um, kind of becoming reliant on it. I guess, for lack of a better way of saying that.
Tim, that's such an excellent point. I appreciate you bringing that up because we do hear this all the time that say it's recommended for someone to consider an assistive device. Sometimes that can be perceived as, so is walking not going to be getting any better? Would that not be a goal to work on? And that's definitely not the case. Say, for example, someone notices a change in their movement dramatically based on where they are in their medication cycle. Perhaps that's a time where they may use an assistive device when they're really feeling in the off stages to help them get where they need to go. I've had many examples of if people are just trying to get to a medical appointment and they've got to get across the parking lot or get across the clinic to get to see their doctor. It's something that just helps them get to where they're going quickly. I've had some people use a wheeled walker to say make it to event the family is trying to walk to together. And then the other one other aspect I'll just offer this is that sometimes if someone has an assistive device, it is almost a signal to the general population around them that maybe to just take it easy walking around this person, that there's no need to rush or shove or bump or anything like that. It's just a signal that this particular person might need a little more time getting around. So I have some people who use the device under circumstances where they might be in a very crowded environment. But we certainly think of an assistive device as one tool, and not that if someone's using it that somehow that is a commentary on their walking overall.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and it's one of those things. It's always a tricky conversation, but ways that using something like this could actually help you stay active. Because I think sometimes people kind of start to decide not to do certain things in their daily routine, or that they miss that family event, or don't go out to lunch with their friends, and this is a way that you can kind of actually use this to get stronger and more active. So
Absolutely, Tim. Thank you. That's such an excellent point because we know how important it is to continue for walking, for exercise, for movement quality, and sometimes an assistive device is one way to keep that going.
Hmm.
Yeah. Tim, thank you so much for everything on the questions from everyone today. Um, I I do want to give a general thank you as well to the APDA, and then also to let everyone know that if they've missed any of our past episodes of the Let's Keep Moving series, all of them are accessible on the APDA playlist. So really encourage anyone, if you haven't had a chance to see some of the seminars, to go ahead and check them out. And then we also encourage everyone to check out the APDA virtual events calendar, which is something that just keeps everyone in the know about what's coming up with virtual events. And then, of course, checking with their local APDA chapter for what events may be coming up in person. So again, with that, we just want to thank everyone so much. And we look forward to seeing you at the next Let's Keep Moving series.
Hi, I'm Leslie Chambers, the President and CEO of the American Parkinson Disease Association. Each month, across the country, APDA is providing support groups, exercise classes, and educational programs like this one to support the Parkinson's disease community. You can find all of our upcoming virtual events on our website at apdaparkinson.org/events. If you enjoyed today's broadcast, I hope you will consider making a donation to help keep programs like this possible. Your gift can help APDA support people living with PD through local programs, reliable resources, and groundbreaking research designed to find treatments and ultimately the cure for Parkinson's disease. Please donate today at apdaparkinson.org/donate. And thank you so much for your support.